thinking about the women who shaped the nation, wondering how their stories inspired the next generations? Pause, think about it with intentional thought, and consider where we go from here. We honor the power of 40 trailblazing Bahamian women who paved our journey. How did they break the barriers you may still be facing? What lessons can we benefit from their journey? Stay tuned as author Pam Gomez shares insights from her book, Strong Bahamian Women Icons and Legends. We're celebrating their legacy.
Something to think about with Dale Happy Knowles. What we think, we become. What we radiate, we attract. What we imagine, we surely can achieve. Let's change the narrative, 242.
Welcome to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. And we're here with the lovely Pam Gomez. And we want to thank our sponsors, Dom Dev Enterprises and Pache Investments. And all of you all around the world. All the way, I got my friends down there in Ghana, and some of them up there in France, and the next one's across the pond in England, and we got our neighbors right next door. They just like us. So we like them. And some even down south. So let us know where you're from, where you're thinking, what you're thinking about today, how your day went, whatever you want to tell us. Just become a good, big part of the family. So welcome, Pam. How you doing today? I can call you Pam today, right?
Yeah, certainly. I'm wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
Awesome. Yeah. So we know you got plenty things on your plate, and so forth. And if I could find my spot, we know you're an author, you're a culture advocate, you're a storyteller, you're an enterpriser, you're all kind of things. Tell us a little bit about that yourself. What people would want to know. Mm-hmm.
I'm an author, an Amazon author with more than 100 books published. Wow. I'm also an entrepreneur. I have my own small business called Au Natural Aromatherapy, established in 2010, and I have my own brand of essential oil products. In addition to that, I started a magazine business some years ago, that one of those small businesses that failed, and that led to blogging. So I also am a blogger. I was featured in the In-Flight magazine that Bahamas Air has a couple of years ago on a couple of occasions. So that's just a little bit about me.
Yeah. And you we know you walk the walk of the man above. So
of course. I'm a member of St. Christopher's Church in Life Key, and I want to say hi to my fellow parishioners.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we like to start off the show with setting the precedents. And so when we look at that, we want to put this up on the screen and say that Shirley Chisholm says that if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring your own folding chairs. Bang-a-lang. Mm-hmm. So, women always talk about they ain't got no seat at no table. Blah, 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 blah. And this lady, is telling you all to bring your own folding chairs. And my view is that the people that you can highlight today, I don't know if you could highlight all of them today, or if however you choose to do it, but we know that they all brought their folding chairs to the table.
Definitely.
And made themselves heard, whether it was through an alpha scenario or through a omega scenario. The bottom line is they became effective at what they do, and so forth.
That is true, Happy. I started out to highlight 40 Bahamian women for the 50th anniversary of independence. But that evolved, and I had a couple of setbacks. And at completion of the book, I highlighted 55 of them. Some are still with us, some are not. I started the story from the women's suffrage movement time. So I started with I highlighted 6 of them, starting with Mary Ingram, Georgina Simonet, um, Doris Johnson, Eugenia Lockhart, all six of them I've highlighted in the book. And I've highlighted speeches that were made on significant anniversaries, such as the anniversary of the 60th anniversary of the formation of the women's suffrage movement. Also the 60th anniversary of the first female to register to vote. In addition to that, the 40th anniversary of Dame Janet Boswick.
Yeah, but let's not go too far down the road into the book.
Okay.
We gotta build up for the book.
Okay.
Right?
Cool.
All right, and so let me go back to my screen there. So then, you want to know the first question, so I'm gonna ask you the first question. Would you share a moment when you created your own opportunities rather than wait for the invitation to the table?
Okay, so my first, I would say a moment, that would be when I created my first business.
Okay.
I always wanted to have my own business, so I started a magazine subscription business, which was Smith & Gomez Booksellers, and that went on for a couple of years. I used to do magazine deliveries, and that was one of my businesses that failed. Another time,
It wasn't successful.
Right, it wasn't successful. Yeah. Another time, I guess it was during there's a couple times that I brought my own chair to the table. I'm sorry, I'm just one of those persons who do that. Writing my first book, I guess. I wanted to write my book and I didn't know how to start. So I started a group. That supported each other. And that group led to a challenge. And that was in 2014. And that challenge was to be the first person to create an ebook. And that was me. Yeah, I won that challenge.
Just a setup. Cool. All right. So when we look at that then, whether in business, writing, advocacy, every trailblazer faces moments of doubt or resistance. So tell us then, how did you push past those challenges and position yourself to be a voice, excuse me, in the spaces that you have not been welcomed in the first place?
Well, I would say this, it takes a village, because there was self-doubt. And I have to give kudos to some of my persons in my village. I'll start with my sister, Allison Maynard Gibson. She always encouraged me, always had a positive word. There was Tony Lashley. She had something to say. They always said, go for it, or supported me. Another person I want to highlight in that regard is Mrs. Elma Garraway. I remember one time with this very same book, I was about to give up because I had a number of health challenges writing this book. And one time I was when I felt I was at my lowest point, I saw her and she took my hand and she says, "Don't give up." So yeah, that, and another person, I tell you, I have a village. Another person was Lady Naomi Wallace Whitfield. She always has an encouraging word and pushes me to go the extra mile.
You live on top of the hill, man. Them names you calling. You ain't no bottom of the hill with none of us.
Actually, I don't. So those persons on the top of the hill, they reach down to me and they pull me up.
Well, that's the way it should be. And we can
Yes,
talk a little bit about that a little later on, right?
Yes.
And so, we got the International Women's Day coming up. What day is that?
That is Saturday, March 8th.
March the 8th.
Yes, this coming Saturday, March 8th.
Yeah, and so that's been celebrated for years, but it seemed like, I mean, quite frankly, I only learned about it a couple of years back, maybe about 5 or 6 years back, but I never paid attention to it because I didn't even know we had an International Men's Day either. So that tell you something, right? So,
Well,
you know,
Happy, I gotta tell you, it's been a part of my life ever since 2017 when I served as director of Bahamas Maritime Authority.
okay.
My dear friend Madam Justice Denise Lewis Johnson encouraged me to host an event on International Women's Day. It was to highlight women in maritime, and that event was so well received. It empowered me to do something for the women in future. So ever since then, wherever I was working or wherever I was on that day, I would do something significant for the women in my environment.
Cool. Right. So that is being something that has been perpetuated over and over and over and over, which is good. Bum, bum, bum. So then we got another one here. Say, regarding the theme, what do you believe should remain the central focus of this day for Bahamian women?
Oh, that I believe should be highlighting and celebrating the contributions of Bahamian women throughout the length and breadth of the archipelago.
Cool. Well,
Yes.
we'll talk a little bit about how they're highlighting later. But
Okay.
so let's switch back to now, saying that you jump out the gun and wanted to go to your book straight away. So then, your book highlights the 40 remarkable women. What inspired you to write this book, and why now versus sometime before?
Well, Happy, I don't know if I told you, but this book was in the making for at least 2.5 years. And it happened so that on the 60th anniversary of the women's suffrage movement and the 40th anniversary celebration of Dame Janet being called, being the first woman to enter into Parliament, there was a celebration held at Sapodilla. Leslie Miller, the MP for, was that Seabreeze, I believe. Well, she had an event. She had an event that celebrated Dame Janet's anniversary. And I was at home. I wasn't invited. See, I wasn't invited to that.
So you bring your lounge there.
Yeah. So I was at home on the couch watching the highlights on the evening news. And that room, to me, just did something. It was a cross-section of persons from society, from all industries and backgrounds. There were doctors, lawyers, politicians, judges in that room. There were every political party represented, and they all came together to celebrate this giant of a woman. And I said, this is it's being recorded, but is anybody writing about this? And I thought about my social studies, history, civics. There was no documented evidence or no book at the time about these women and their accomplishments. So our history was full of men. It was Blackbeard and all the other accomplishments of men in country. So I took out a journal, and I do that a lot. I journal. And I started to make notes. And again, I reached out to somebody in my village, and I said, do you think this is a good idea? Do you think I should do it? And at the time, the number 40 was, okay, let me do 40 women. That was the thing. And when I started that, I found that the 40 women that I had selected, at least 10 said no. So that left me with 30. And then I said, maybe I should, it was before the 50th anniversary. I said, maybe I should do 50. I started that process of finding 50 women. And again, some said no, but there was that yes that kept me going. I got my 50 women and I kept sharing, and it ended up being 55 women to date.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. And counting, because I'm sure that there's more and more and more as we go along the way, right?
Definitely. I want to do a second edition, and I just spoke with someone this past weekend. There's some persons in the Family Islands who have never been highlighted. One of them is Mrs. Nixon down in Inagua. And I've been told about the great work she's been doing, and I would love to get her bio to include in my second edition.
Well, you're always moving the chairs, so I'm sure you can make that happen.
I'm trying. I'm talking to her son, John, as we speak.
There you go. Bam, 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 bam. So, Brother Howard, how you doing? Dale, and he says that there is interesting gender impact by Bahamian women.
Definitely.
Wow. Yeah, cool. Well, build up your questions, folks, because you're welcome and open to ask your questions, make a comment, and also, anything you want to put out there that is constructive and productive. We're not gonna highlight any of the other kind of crazy stuff that goes on things somewhat, right? So, boom, boom, boom. How did I say what question I asked? I asked about the book. Did I ask this one? How did you go about? You just talked about that. Where were any surprises or challenges in narrowing down the list? So you're talking about expanding the list. So let's ask it from that perspective.
How I went about selecting the women. These women have all impacted my life, or I've met them in passing, or I've been impressed by some of the things they've accomplished in their lives, and I saw them as inspiration. The one thing that I would say surprised me was as I was doing the book, as I was making notes, there were accomplishments being achieved. Persons were breaking that glass ceiling, and I was like, whoa, I have to change my script. I have to change their bios. Some of them I had already collected their bios, and I had to go back and say, can I get a revision, please? And that for me was evidence that women are making significant contributions to the country at large.
Always have.
Yeah.
Cool. And none of these people force themselves on you, right? Because that's a question coming up later. Not that question, but something tied to that.
No, they were open and willing. They did not force themselves on me. I must highlight one in particular, Telsina Coakley. She passed away in December, but about two months prior to her passing, I would say 2 to 3 months prior to her passing, she invited me to come and sit with her. And we spent 3 hours talking about her journey into her profession, how she started out as a teacher. And she was instrumental in bringing, I think it's Sinbens, to the Bahamas.
Right.
She also told me about her time as a teacher, what she had to do, how they had to walk to school, how far it was, where they lived. She shared all of this with me. And I was taken away that even though in her condition, she wasn't well, she was ailing, but she invited me, and I was delighted to have that opportunity to sit with her. She passed in December, but I promised her that I would, include her bio, and also she asked me to do something else, and that is write her full bio. So that's one of the things. She left me with a challenge, so I have to try and live up to
fulfill that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And folks, I always tell people from something to think about, see here that, and from my long experience in life, people only successful when they have two things line up with them: strong mentors and strong cheerleaders. Right? They need a mentor to help them, guide them through how they're gonna get where they're going, and they need the cheerleaders to open doors that they might not necessarily have access to open themselves. And you have on the screen here a young lady, yes, relatively speaking, young. Yeah, I call them young because they're still young. I don't like the term that we like to use in the Bahamas about, anyway, we won't use that term. I don't like it. So, they're young because relatively speaking, the world is long aged and stuff. We only here for with the time. But this young lady here, I'm sure, made a big impact on your journey.
She did. She certainly
Okay.
did.
So thank you kindly for joining us and sharing with us. And do please share some more. Don't let's not be bashful on the show. We like when we get engagement from the audience. A lot of time we find that the audience just be so in awe. But seeing that we're dealing with people on top of the hill today, I'm sure y'all could learn plenty things for us. Yeah. Cool. All right. So where was I? I was down here by the book. So in the book, then, when we look at the book, what is it that you wish for it to accomplish with the particularly young audience? Because that's what we want something to think about. Is all about trying to help open the doors and the minds of people, particularly our youth, to know that the Bahamas is not necessarily the way the Bahamas is today. It was not always like this. There's these people we talk about, trailblazers, who paved the way for the Bahamas to grow to what it has gone. Yes, grow, not what most young people think, that the Bahamas and moving nowhere and blah 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 and all that kind of stuff, right? So, what do you think from out of your book will help them?
Well, Happy, my ultimate goal would be to inspire not necessarily just young girls, but young persons to strive for their goals, to achieve their goals. And the book, I would hope, would highlight some of the accomplishments of women and give a young girl or a young boy that dream that they can achieve that as well. Because each of the ladies highlighted share where they came from, their things that inspired them, and their accomplishments, whether it was education or career and beyond. So I'm hoping that this book would inspire some young Bahamian or someone somewhere in the world just not to give up. I hope it empowers them to keep striving for their goals and accomplishments.
Yeah. So when we look at that, then what is offered in the book that you would have wished was offered to you at an early age in your youthful life?
Oh my goodness. Happy, there's so much. And this is I can't see it too well, but this is a copy of the book, right? In this book, I have at least 3 justices. I have 3 governor generals or acting governor generals. And just to learn of their journey, go into high school right here in the Bahamas. They participated. They did what I did. It gives every young girl a vision to see that I could do it too. I can achieve that as well. I didn't have that. When I was in high school, I didn't have anybody to emulate. I remember being asked the question, who's your hero or who's your mentor? Well, back then, it was my mother. She did everything for me. She scolded me. She guided me. It was my mother. And persons like your mother, Happy, Heidi, she was there for us. She was an inspiration to us. She was a business professional. So seeing her and my mother and my aunts, I have 7 aunts, seeing them in action in my narrow circle growing up, I tried to emulate them. I had Aunt Annalie Edwards. She was a member of every women's organization, including the ACW at the Anglican Church. She was a part of the business community in Grand Bahama. Everybody knew my Aunt Annalie, and I was like, wow, she does so much. She does, I admired that. So that was part of what I saw on a regular, and I wanted to emulate.
Cool. And so I see you've moved on and gotten all of this nuggets and light from all these different young ladies. I'm sure some men along the way too. But
Definitely. Definitely. I'll save that for International Men's Day, but right now it's all about the ladies.
All right. I couldn't sneak that one in. Boy,
No.
you're all rough now. You're woman rough.
Actually, your mom tried to sneak that in for me yesterday too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Interesting. I guess that's why I'm a chip off that block.
oh gosh.
All right. So 40 young women who've now become 56 young women
55.
and counting. So you're going to have to modify your book, particularly in the ebook scenario.
The second edition, Happy. The second edition.
No, that's what you call it. Yeah.
Yes, the second edition. This is the first. I'm planning a second edition. And if there's anybody who wants to recommend someone for that second edition, I'm open to accepting bios right now.
Ooh. Well, I'll tell you, I have 3 books, and they all still halfway in my head or halfway on the computer. And I applaud you for writing 2 books, because I didn't get the first one out yet.
I can help you with that because I'm also a publisher.
Oh boy.
Yes.
Oh, you on top of the hill for true. I went with you.
You had better stop that. No, I'm not on top of no hill. I'm being pulled up by my sisters in my village.
Okay. You've been inspired by them. Cool. So let's cross over to some of these ladies more in detail now. All right. And so these 40 ladies broke barriers in politics, education, medicine, and more. What's some of the more?
Well, just on this January 3rd, we got our first female commissioner of police. That's a glass ceiling that was never broken before. So that's a bit
I
of
wrote about that one.
And also, we had pilots, female pilots. The first 3 female pilots at Bahamas Air, they are featured in the book.
Okay.
That's more. Then we have a lieutenant commander at the Defense Force in the person of Samantha Hart. For me, that's more. And then, of course, this person is not in the book, but we have an astronaut, a Bahamian astronaut. Can't recall her name at this moment, but hey, that's more.
Cool. You on a roll, man. Like you say, you get plenty more lineup, because you even got some who young. When I say young, I mean real young, who might not. Because sometimes we believe that you got to be operational for about till you're 60 or 70 or 80 before we could award people or honor people, I should say. What's your thought on that? Could somebody be young and do significant?
Until a person dies to honor them. I really don't. I was disappointed that Telsina Coakley didn't see the book in its completion. But there are persons who I had to include in this book, that some unsung heroes. One of them is Mrs. Nancy Kelly. I just had to include her in the book because I personally know of her contribution to the Bahamas, but other people don't know. They just see this humble lady. For me and you, we see her every Sunday and she sits at church and she leaves, right? But for me, Nancy Kelly is one of those persons I felt moved to highlight because of her contribution to the Bahamas. In addition to that, there are persons who have passed on. Mrs. Lady Edith Turnquist. There's also the ladies from the women's suffrage movement. They've done so much, but the younger persons coming along, following in their footsteps, I would highlight Pia Glover Roll. I would highlight the young ministers that we have today in government. I would also highlight young persons who are breaking the young females who are breaking that ceiling.
Cool. Okay. So you know the doctors and the lawyers can be mad if you don't add any of them in the picture.
Oh,
right?
of course. You got to add the doctors and the lawyers. Who did I can't call her name. Mildred Hall Watson. She's one of the doctors. There's another doctor in here. And then, of course, I got to mention Rome Italia Johnson, the first Speaker of the House. I've got to mention Lady Pinland. She was, you may as well call her the mother of the nation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So pick 1, 2, 3 maybe people in the book that you feel comfortable in saying like the scope of what you covered in the book, so people would know what they need to buy the book for to read about all of these other high society people on top of the hill.
Happy pleased.
Yeah, that's how Bahamians think. So we gotta help them understand the relationship. But not everybody is a high society person. I agree. I'm not saying it from that perspective. But the bottom line is a lot of people feel that they're disconnected from another set of people, and so your book is gonna help bridge that gap.
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
So from that perspective, why they would want to read it, because some people might pick up and say, oh, that's just them people again. I need to hear no more about them. Right?
It's quite the opposite. All 55 of the biographies included in this book tells the story of where they began. So you would find exactly where they lived, what island they hailed from, what schools they went to. And it's the same schools that our young people are in today. Like I highlighted an educator, Mary Cooper, who happens to be my cousin, by the way, but she's now passed on. But I never knew until I got her bio that she went to West End all-age school, and she ended up being a teacher at West End all-age school. I never knew that, right? And Wally Robinson is a realtor. She's passed on, but there's so much about her I learned in her bio. And it's from humble beginnings. She was a twin. Many people didn't know that. She grew up in Nassau and moved to Grand Bahama. And there she became, a real estate mogul, you may as well say, because she was well known in the real estate community. Then Joy Jubilee. Many persons see Joy on the news, but they don't know her story. Okay. So anyone reading this book will find out from whence these persons came and how they achieved their goals in their careers, where they started, and so on.
Cool. So, as you mentioned, many of these women had to bring their own folding chairs to the table, right? And pave their way and push their way into the conversations, into the actions, into making things happen, the change. How did their courage reshape opportunities for Bahamian women today?
Just the pure fact that they achieved their goal has empowered others to keep on track to meet their goals. It changed the thought. It changed the narrative. One time ago, it was unthinkable for a woman to be on the defense force, especially in a lead role. We have that now. It was unthinkable to have a commissioner of police as a female. We
In
have
fact, it's
that.
unthinkable for us to have a Bahamian commissioner of police in the first place.
Exactly. So you see, it's twofold in that case. What about justices? We have a number of female justices right now. In the book, I feature 3. Denise Lewis Johnson, actually it's 4. Denise Lewis Johnson, Hope Strawn, they're all justices. Janine Wish Gomez, and also Petra Adderley, Justice Petra Adderley. Yes, so it's 4
Okay.
of them. One time ago, it was unthinkable. When I thought about a judge or a justice, I always thought about this man in his robe with this a wig on.
And some of them most of them might have been foreign. Yeah.
Exactly. So we are breaking that glass ceiling and changing the narrative.
Yeah. And so from a courage point of view, because they broke the ceilings or passed over the mountains that was in front of them, how does that impact the young people today?
It's inspiration. It's inspiration right in front of you to keep going. Don't give up. Keep pushing. You might fail once, but don't give up. Keep trying.
Cool. Inspiration, key word. Don't forget it. Mark it on the calendar on the side because questions and talk about inspiration. So, do you think Bahamian women have reached full equality in leadership and opportunity, or are still systemic barriers to overcome?
There are still barriers to overcome. Look at this. We've never had a female prime minister. Something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at that from multiple ways, right?
Yeah, you're right. So they have not. I don't think they've reached the full equality in leadership because there are so many opportunities that still exist. But I was pleased at the time that I was writing this book. We had at least 5 or 6 women in top positions. You had the governor general that was female. You have the speaker of the House, the speaker of the Senate, the commissioner of police, and there is another. It was at least 5. 5 top positions that are held by women in country that I was inspired.
And you all say you all have no power.
It's changing. We're changing the narrative.
But you always had the power.
We're changing the narrative.
When the if you go back to the suffragist movement, who was it who caused majority rule and the rest of those things to happen?
It was their efforts.
Huh?
It was the collective effort of the women.
Yes.
They supported the men, and it was achieved.
Or push the men to do whatever. All of that, right? So
I
don't know about
delighted to learn of a story, Happy, when I was researching the women's suffrage movement, and a lot of persons know of Dud Maynard, and one of the granddaughters shared a story with me that he was there because his grandmother was Georgina Simonet, and he was instrumental in getting them to the meetings and the communities. And I was told a story where he had a truck, and when it was time for those meetings, he would load up the truck with the ladies and take them to their meetings and make sure they got back home safe. I said, wow, I wish I had taken the opportunity to talk to him before he had passed on.
Right? Yeah. I mean, and then you still have the other side of the family who can help talk about what is their mommy and XYZ, etc. did all of those. So,
Yes,
there's the opportunities are there.
definitely.
And so forth.
And like I said, there's a second edition. This is only the first.
Right. Yeah, but we want to get the first edition out there and want people to feel compelled to go and buy it. and
Yes.
learn more about what's going on. That's why we brought you on the show, because we felt that the book, basically is telling a narrative of what we tend not to tell in the Bahamas. When we talk, we like to talk from a position versus from a neutral position, from a biased position from versus a neutral position as to what is or was, etc. And so if I'm wearing a colorful shirt and you're wearing a straight blue blouse, if it's not benefiting your blue blouse, then typically, I'm not talking for you, but I'm talking about generally in the Bahamas. We will talk because we want the blue blouse to look good. And anything that's not too good, we tend to suppress it. But
Yeah.
you present the book from a position of what the people accomplished and let the chips fall where they fall.
Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
All right, so let's see here. So how can we ensure that the legacy of these women is not just remembered, but actively built upon for future generations?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. I would like to see this book entered into the school system. I have started the process of writing to the powers that be, and I'm hoping that my communication doesn't get lost. Because if this is even just mentioned in the school system as supplement, the legacy lives on.
Okay.
And
So
not just in Nassau, to be, in Nassau.
Nassau centric, yeah.
Exactly.
By the way, since you mentioned that, how many of these people have roots or came from the Family Islands?
Oh my gosh, there's so many of them. Of the 55, oh gosh, I could tell you this much. Almost every island is represented. Grand Bahama is definitely represented because I got my mother and Lady Smith at the top.
Well,
West End, Grand Bahama.
West End,
I have Emerald Robinson. She's 8 Mile Rock, Grand Bahama. I've got Long Island in the person of Sylvia Scriven. I've got Eleuthera represented. Oh yeah.
And like you say, book 2, because you even say JJ, John Gwell. So
Exactly.
that's
Exactly.
big stuff right there.
See, there were a couple athletes I reached out to, but like I said, everybody was not forthcoming with the requests. So
Sometimes they got to see first. Okay.
And I had time constraints, so I had to have things in a certain time. And when it didn't reach, I just had to go forward with what I had.
Right. Cool. Okay, so now we asked the question here about building for generations to come, right? And so when we talk about developing more leaders, right, and moving forward, and there's a scripture that I think we all should know, even though most women that I knew kind of hide it or suppress it or reduce its significance. But it says, blessed is the man who finds himself a wife, right? Key word there is finds himself a wife, right? Anyway, likewise, when we look at the adage, it says, followers create leaders. Leaders don't create followers. Leaders develop more leaders. So the question I'm going to ask to that, right? And keywords there is create and follow and develop, right? So certain people create things and certain people develop things in life. So how do we shift from just celebrating women's achievement and the mindset of creating a leader via position, posting them in certain positions and achieving certain authorities and what have you, to actively developing more female leaders in the Bahamas? And remember I said, from a leader's point of view, a leader is one who creates more leaders. Followers create the leader. Go ahead.
Well, From my perspective, I would say I would reflect on our school system,
Okay.
and I would start there. If we teach them about our leaders, that would help develop more females and empower them to go for their goals.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
I would say start at the school system or start at home.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good start too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So in that, the formal setting of education and development would be your first point.
Yes.
How and the home would be the community, which because
Yes.
I mean the
I'm
village
gonna
has
give,
shrunk to a home, if I could say that, or TV or YouTube. Right. So maybe pointing out programs on these things that people watch and stuff, engage in, not just the dances on TikTok and stuff, but I'm sure there gotta
oh,
be
definitely not.
some other people in there who, as they say, spitting lyrics
Let
that
me
make
give you an
sense.
example, Happy. There was something I wanted to learn just today. And a young person said to me, well, this person is very tech savvy. And they said to me, go to YouTube and look for XYZ and you will find how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So even though this person is not a leader, I took their advice and I followed them and I learned what I needed to learn.
Mm-hmm.
It's right out there in the public domain, and I just had to ask YouTube the right question.
Right? Yeah, and they could come and ask something to think about with their happy notes, and you get plenty of answers that will help you along the way. Because we've had you're the 144th guest,
Yes,
right?
I see that.
And keep growing, piece by piece, as we go, and all dropping serious nuggets, right? One said, with your biting, it could break your teeth. Them whole gold, shiny ones. Yeah. Not the ones we get from the store that you get heat up in the microwave and thing. Cool. All right. So, execution often comes with resistance. What policy shifts or mindset changes need to happen, both from government, private sector, etc., to fully capitalize on this mindset shift for being able to develop more women leaders?
First of all, opportunities need to be presented to the women.
We start out by talking about you bringing your own chair, fold-up chair to the table now. Why are you looking now to ask for somebody to hand something to you?
Well, a lot of times we try and we get shut down. It isn't every time that we try that we get or we are given the opportunity. But we don't give up. We just keep trying.
Okay.
Women in country have stepped forward. They have brought their chairs to the forefront, and some of them have succeeded and some of them are still trying. Mm-hmm. Government has been opening doors for opportunities for women. We had never had, take for instance, an office of the spouse.
That's a questionable one still to me, right? But
we only had that for a couple of years. That's something new, brought to the forefront by a woman. We've never had, what's the other thing I wanted to say? There's several. Right now it escapes me, but even in the private sector, we have broken barriers.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you have people like my classmate. I'm assuming she was the first chief there at Commonwealth Bank. right? But
And Denise Lewis Johnson was the first Bahamas Maritime Authority chair. We've always had a male in that position. That was a significant accomplishment for a woman.
yeah, but we talking about here now. We talking about the ones where these women has the opportunity or make the opportunity to put themselves at the table. So, what? That's what I'm asking you. What do you see out there that women should aspire to try and put themselves to that table?
The office of the Prime Minister. Never,
People that
never
I
happened
remember,
before.
remember I told you, remember I suggested to you that followers create leaders. So to put the person in the chair of the prime minister, etc., and all, it's really the followers who does that, not
The
not
leader.
the individual themselves. Right? And
Right.
that's why I went through that little halfway randy type of thing. I mean, sometimes we get that
Something to
mixed up
think
too, right?
about.
So how do you encourage the followers, the people, the electorate, to cause a woman prime minister to happen? And by the way, you have to develop the woman prime minister have to be a woman prime minister before she get elected. You can't get elected and then become a prime minister. Because
Why
we've
is
had,
that?
listen, you had too many cases to show already that if you're not prime minister material when you become prime minister, then we don't go forward, we go backwards. And I did say too many
agree with
cases. I didn't say one case, too many. Go ahead.
I'm not sure that I could agree with you on that.
That's fine. That's fine. But the record will show. Yeah.
I think that's an opportunity, still not yet achieved, but you can't close the book on that yet.
I'm not closing the book. I'm asking you, how do women get the electorate to be able to rally behind
That
somebody that they have already developed into these leadership, that is leadership levels, leadership competence for a prime minister? And I'm not measuring it by what prime ministers we have had. And that's why I said some of these prime ministers send things backwards. Because we like to compare ourselves to other people, but really and truly to me, we should be comparing ourselves to our potential as what we have as individuals. So I'm asking, how do society, women in particular, encourage people who have the potential to do what they need to do to achieve that and to step forward?
just supporting them, voting for them,
But they might even go
encouraging
to the
them.
table.
They're not
Okay.
what?
They might even want to go to the table.
I'm sure there's someone out there.
Right there,
I'm sure
maybe.
there's someone out there, but you and I don't know who that is. But I'm sure there's someone, maybe a young person, who knows, who has those aspirations and dreams that is now building that following.
Oh, yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm saying, how do we cause it to happen? Right? How do we
Well,
get to
people have to
inspire these
support
people
that
to want to
individual.
move
They have to
forward?
make it known, and we have to support that individual once they come forward. If they're a viable candidate, why not? And if it's a woman, why not?
Yep. Okay. Cool. All right. So, Financia Bandel says, congratulations, Pam. Thank you.
Valence. Thank you, Valence. That happens to be one of my grand Bahama cousins.
And plenty cousins over there.
Yes, 7 aunts, 7 aunts and 4 uncles. There was no TV in those days.
Oh boy. Cool.
Oh, God.
So my favorite question on the table then is, we've asked you a number of questions on different aspects. Some hard, mostly easy. But because we want to inspire the society to build higher quality of life for Bahamians and to show that they have opportunities to do it. We just need to stop looking at the traditional narrative and speak to things that is different. So, of all the things we spoke of today on the subject of the 40 trailblazers, etc. What haven't I touched on or asked you about that you would like to expound on or share with the public?
Well, first, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be here. And then I'd also like to let the public know that my book, Strong Bahamian Women Icons and Legends, launches on International Women's Day. This is March 8th, this Saturday. The book goes live on Amazon at midnight on the 7th. In addition to that, I'd like to say that I'd like if, how can we build or help others to grow and empower young women and men? I would encourage everybody to mentor a young person, mentor a young girl or a young boy. And that would help to build their village. Like I have my village, they too will have their village, and inspire. These ladies have inspired me. And if everybody else picks someone to inspire and help and give that virtual hand up, that would be what I'd like to share at this time.
Awesome. Well, we'd like to thank you for joining us and sharing these good words of nuggets that will help inspire other people, and your good works and your resilience not to just let the first Goliath who come along to tell you can't do this or you can't do that. You just kept plowing through. And I know with your personality that you will continue to do well, because you from Grandmama on the west side, so you all just don't like to hear no.
I'm surprised you're saying that.
Yeah, anyway. Cool.
Yes, I'm a proud West Ender. West Ender.
Cool, yeah. And so, like I said, thank you very kindly for doing so. I want to make sure I get my copy. You say it goes online
midnight on the 7th.
Midnight the 7th. So, I can't put in my order until the 8th. So, we'll delay my order till then so I could get.
I will make sure you get that.
Yeah, I don't put in 2 orders. These freight orders are charging too much. For this and that and the rest. Cool.
But hopefully in the next week or so after the soft launch, I should have books in Nassau, and I'm looking at putting them in a couple bookstores as well. So stay tuned.
Okay. All right. But I'll come wait for that then instead of, I like to get my, people who sign on the front get plenty power, and people who sign on the back, we just subservient to whatever it is that you all do.
All right, Happy. I'll make sure you get a signed copy. Yes.
Thank you. So, be blessed, be blessed. And we'll talk with you soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Folks, you've been watching Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. And as we gather today, there's multiple opportunities across the board for people to grow and strengthen themselves and cut down barriers and create new things, be trailblazers, and particularly the women. And so we want to highlight all of these things, because all of these things allow us to grow the Bahamas from strength to strength. And once we knock down some of these narratives that are biased in one way or the other, or stuck in tradition and so forth, that's the only way we can be able to change, is to be able to innovate and to market what is out there. And so we love it. Hopefully everybody is more successful in what they're doing. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
Enjoyed the show? Then subscribe to us for more educational and inspirational content. Ring the bell so you never miss a show. Let's change the narrative 242.